I wanted to get a video in before Christmas was over. It's not really a holiday that I observe or anything, but I know it's a lot of people's favorite. My favorite is Halloween. Well, that's my second favorite. My favorite holiday or high holy day is my birthday. But anyway, not much going on Christmas. I did just try to select an annual Christmas movie to watch, as I have an annual Thanksgiving movie. You might recall I covered Nashville a few installments back and on Thanksgiving. In this case, I wanted to get a wintry one that was long and dense, and man, I picked one, and I'm not going to go into it because I changed my mind about selecting it. So I'm going to save it for another time. It was a little too dense for me in the mood I was in today, but that's not an indictment. It might be an indictment of my mental state, but not of the film itself. So I looked for another kind of epic length film, and I went ahead and selected something from Kino, which I'm watching now. I guess I could go ahead and talk about it. I'll even show you the artwork. So this is Die Nibelungen, and this is put out by Kino. This is a special edition. It came out about 5-6 years ago. A friend of mine bought that for me for Christmas, actually, one year, and I upgraded from my DVD set. So what's the deal with Die Nibelungen? Well, it's my favorite Fritz Lang film. So as most of his best films are, it's during the silent era, though he did do great ones after, like M and so forth. But everyone remembers Metropolis. Well, to me, this outshines Metropolis. I might be biased because I've been interested in this legend of Die Nibelungen since I was a kid. I got into it via Mighty Thor comic books, and they did an adaptation of the Wagnerian opera, which itself is an adaptation of the legend of the Nibelungenlied, or Nibelungenlied, and I think that's the name of the book that, is the original repository of the legends. I later went to the library and checked out a bunch of original Norse source documents, modern translations, like the Icelandic Eddas, and the Nibelungenlied was one of those, or Nibelungenlied is one of those. I have to get used to saying it differently. I thoroughly enjoyed that, but I noted that there are quite a few differences between it and the opera. I used to check record albums out of the opera. I used to check record albums out of the library downtown, and I did that for a number of years when I was a kid. And one I got every year without fail was Der Ring des Nibelungen. Der Ring des Nibelungen. So that was like the Ring of the Nibelung, and that is Wagner's adaptation of the legend, but restoring a lot more of the Norse mythology aspect of it, since it was for Germany. Interestingly, this movie, made by Germans, dispenses with the Norse mythology. The characters seem to be all Catholic, but plot-wise, it follows the Nibelungenlied, the original text of that, and it does not follow Wagner's opera. So if you're like me and you're like, oh wow, a movie of the Ring of the Nibelung, well, no, that's not it. There's been some filmed stage performances, quite a number, some pretty interesting, but this is not that either. This is a film that Fritz Lang, based on the legend, has all new music, also epic style music. I mean, it's not like Wagner, but what is? And I went ahead and I'm a Wagner fan. I'll go ahead and admit that he's my favorite writer of operas. I'm not a big opera person, but like I said, I got into this sideways via comic books and the Norse mythology. So the Norse mythology is pretty much stripped out of Lang's film. It does have some fantasy and some special effects and some magic, but it doesn't evoke the Norse gods. it roughly corresponds to the last two of Wagner's Ring cycle. So those are Siegfried and Götterdämmerung. So Siegfried, so he made two films, Lang, and one is called Siegfried, sometimes called Siegfried's Tod, Siegfried's Death, and then the other is KRIEMHILD'S Revenge, and or KRIEMHILD'S Rosh, I'm not sure how you pronounce it in German, but it's a two-part film, so but it does correspond to the same parts of the opera, so it's cool because you can, if you just watch or listen to or however you consume the Ring of the Nibelung, if you choose to do so, Wagner's, it's interesting to compare all the changes between it and Lang's film. And Lang went back to the German names of these characters for the most part. There's quite a bit of alteration of the plot. The whole magic plot with Odin seeking for this magic ring forged by these dwarves. That, and then he has to defeat two giants, and one becomes a dragon. One who grabs the ring becomes a dragon, and then Odin kind of, talks about the earth and has a son who's going to retrieve this ring. The son is Siegmund, Siegfried's father. So Siegmund meets a bad fate, and Siegfried does manage to slay the dragon and get the ring. So all of that is in the opera. Very little of that is in the movie. In the movie, we open with Siegfried hanging out with the Nibelungen, and I assume the Nibelungen in this are supposed to be the dwarves as well, the ones who forged the ring, though it's not totally clear. The ring is not a key plot point in this at all, which is cool because I think if someone did a Nibelungen film now, they would be accused of ripping off the Lord of the Rings films, which of course we know is preposterous because Wagner wrote his opera decades before any Tolkien was published. But that's just kind of the world we have, What can we do about it? I like to spread information rather than mis and disinformation. So yes, The Lord of the Rings was highly influenced by Wagner's Ring cycle. I have never read Tolkien actually quoted as saying that, but I think to say it's not is, yeah. So anyway, and it's not a diss on The Lord of the Rings. It's just I like giving credit where credit's due and kind of digging down deep to the roots of things and to see who was there first, and or at least who was there before whom, and this is a good case of that. So anyway, on to the film. He wrote it in correspondence with his wife, Thea von Harbo, who also worked with him on Metropolis and some other silent films. Now, when the Nazi situation came around, Lang, along with a lot of other filmmakers and artists, fled and came to the United States to work. Thea von Harbo stayed and hung out with the Nazis, and to be honest, I've forgotten her ultimate fate. I'm not sure if she was still a Nazi till the bitter end, or if she survived the war, or what's going on. I mean, she wasn't like a Nazi war criminal. I'm just saying she was a follower. She wasn't just a German citizen hanging out, and can't do anything because of Hitler. She was actually a Nazi and approved of a lot of the ideology, apparently. Perhaps her and Ayn Rand could have met around the same time and been friends. I don't know. But in the movie, we start with Siegfried, and he's hanging out with his dwarf friends, and the ring's been made, and not much is made about the ring thing. The main thing is getting this treasure, and the treasure is guarded by this dragon. So Siegfried battles the dragon. The dragon is a full-scale dragon. Now remember, this is in black and white. They're tinted. The first part is, all of it is tinted in gold. It looks really wonderful. This is a fully restored print. They did the best they could. They had to splice prints together because there is no one surviving negative of the film all the way through. none survive. So it hasn't been preserved the way Metropolis was, for instance. And even Metropolis has had to be restored a number of times and add elements and grade things and et cetera. So same thing here. At the beginning of the Blu-ray, they talk about, they have a blurb about the process, and they go into the restoration. And Kino Classics is good about always providing that information, so you know exactly what elements went into the movie, and you can compare shots, as needed. You can tell some shots were substituted by a print that was originally exhibited because of the wear on it, and then it's spliced in with other shots. Because there's a missing shot, it's spliced in with other shots that have been fully restored. So the quality kind of veers back and forth, but overall it's pristine. I don't think anyone would complain about a few shots being, worn out with the lines and the flickers when it's, a movie that's now 96 years old. That's amazing to think about that. So Siegfried kills the dragon, and it looks pretty cool, actually. Again, they use minimalism to kind of give it some staying power as far as the designs. They don't try to do this elaborate, dragon. They just kind of got this giant lizard, but it is built to scale, and there's guys inside of it puppeting it, so to speak, puppeteering it. And it's a little comical, but it's pretty cool, too. It doesn't really miss a beat. It kind of keeps the story flowing. From there, there's no more monsters and not a lot of overt fantasy elements. The ring is kind of considered significant once or twice, but then just nobody cares about it by the time we get to the second movie. The treasure, however, is an ongoing source of controversy because Siegfried, when he gets the treasure and becomes like the king of the Nibelung, or Nibelungen, he comes to this kingdom of Burgundy and hangs out with the king Gunther and his sister Kriemhild and their family and etc. And the main antagonist is introduced at this point, this cat named Hagen Tranja, and Hagen has got kind of an Odin fixation going on here. He's got one eye, I guess that's supposed to be put out and has hair on top of it, and then one good eye, and then he has a long beard, and he has a helmet that has very, very high wings on either side, and he's dressed in all chainmail armor, and he never relaxes. He takes the helmet off occasionally. He still keeps the mail on his head, though. I mean, he's always ready for business, every shot. And I have to say, this guy, I thought this the first time I watched it, and I really think it still. He is one of the most loathsome, hateable villains that's ever walked this earth. I mean, that's ever trod the silver screen, so to speak. I don't know if he really would trod the earth or not. So Siegfried makes friends with these people and shares his treasure, and unfortunately he gets sold out for his trouble. I mean, first they want to use him to procure a bride for Gunther, Gunther is like he's just a really ineffective, effete character. He's utterly helpless. How could he be a king? And he could only have inherited it. He could never be a king on his own merit. He's utterly clueless, morally bankrupt, but more spineless and sneaky than he is actually evil. He lets people walk over him, and worse, he lets people walk over his sister and her husband, Siegfried. Siegfried does marry Kriemhild, and so now they're brothers-in-law. They swear a blood brother oath. But Gunther still wants a wife. He can't understand why he can't get a wife. I mean, it's pretty clear if you watch the film, but so he gets Siegfried to go with him to the land of, in this version, I think it's called Eisenland, and there, Brunhilde is the queen, like the warrior queen of the culture. Now, this is a huge change compared to the Wagnerian cycle, where Brunhilde is a Valkyrie, the leader of the Valkyries, and she's rescued by Siegfried and falls in love with him, but then they enchant him to forget her and fall in love with Gutrun, I think is the name of Kriemhild's character in the other version. Though there's been several with different languages, but those are the two main names that have been used for that character. Gunther was Gunter in the ring, and Hagen was Hagen, and etc. Though I think Hagen was not exactly a Burgundian warrior. He had, I can't remember if he was of a different race like Elven or Dwarf, or if I'm absolutely misremembering that. But he was pretty evil. He was scheming to get the ring, and then this he's scheming to get the gold, the treasure that Siegfried got from that dragon made out of paper mache. And they went ahead and pretended that the feats which Gunther's are challenged to by Brunhilde were rendered by Siegfried. So he's got this thing, the old legend is called the Tarnhelm. And this is, they call it a helmet, but it's really just looks like a necklace that you just kind of hang on your head. And it makes him invisible, or he can assume the form of anyone else. So he becomes invisible and kind of shadows Gunther in these contests, because Brunhilde is like, she's super macho, and she's not gonna have a king. It's just gonna be her. Siegfried though is like the most powerful hero in this mythos. So with him lending Gunther a hand, literally lending him a hand, an invisible hand here and there, he manages to narrowly defeat her in all of the competitions that she herself set out for them. Of course, she's been tricked, and they take her back, and she's strong-willed though. She doesn't want to just get married. I mean, they're going to have to pretty much rape or kill her to bend her will, and that sort of happens. Gunther, well, of course, with Hagen's persuasion, Siegfried takes the form of Gunther, and he goes and he fights her, and he defeats her in physical combat, humiliates her. But this is in her bedroom, and it cuts away, and I guess he rapes her, and now he's dominating her, broken her will. Though we find out later he really didn't break her will, and not only that, but he didn't really take her virginity. But she did hate Siegfried for tricking her, along with Gunther. She hated all of them, really. Brunhilde's character just, she doesn't continue on to the fourth part of this cycle, which is the second part of the movie cycle. Her as a great character in Wagner is not here, not utilized here. She's not a Valkyrie. She's really pretty dishonorable and mean, but I don't blame her for not wanting to be conquered by some really cheesy king here with this bizarre page boy haircut, kind of like Prince Valiant. And their armor is kind of evoking that era, Arthurian. So that whole thing just kind of fizzles out. And Hagen, she puts things into motion. She's a catalyst that causes Siegfried's downfall, that she doesn't do it herself. And she's just angry and bitter. And Kriemhild, which I don't blame her, Kriemhild is still very sweet and kind. Her and her husband get along great, and she inadvertently, she gets tricked by Hagen and inadvertently reveals one of Siegfried's only real physical weakness. Because Siegfried himself became enchanted before he met the dragon. Actually, it was when he met the dragon. The dragon's blood went all over his whole body and enchanted him, so he was basically invulnerable. But they missed a spot because a leaf was on it. And for some reason, she's gullible and tells Hagen this, thinking that he's going to do something good with this information. But they take him out on the hunt and deceive him, and that's his downfall. So Kriemhild is now changed forever. And so we get into the next film, and it's basically 2 hours and 15 minutes. The first one was 2.5 hours. The second one is 2 hours and 15 minutes, which go by really briskly. Of Kriemhild planning, plotting, lamenting for, wishing for, praying for the revenge over Hagen for killing her husband. So she takes another husband, and I think in the other sources he had a different name, and I can't remember what it was. It began with an A. And this one they call him Attila, and they go ahead and cap it off by saying that his people are the Huns, but that Attila the Hun and the Huns were not in the original legend or the opera. So it's just kind of excruciating. They always keep protecting Hagen. They always keep blocking him from her vengeance. And she's just pretty indomitable. And, you really feel for her. The first time I watched this, it was like this coiled spring all the way to the last shot when you finally get some relief and release from this, dreadnought you've been enduring for 2 hours plus, and get a little bit of karmic payback here. And it's worth the wait, though. I won't say anything else about the plot because that's a detailed rundown anyway. It's 2 discs. One is Siegfried and one is KRIEMHILD'S Revenge. There's some minimal extras in the second disc. The Legacy of Die Nibelungen. It says a 68-minute documentary. I have watched that once. It's been a while, probably since I first got this. And it talks about the making of the movie and the restoration of it. So that's pretty cool. And like I said, the picture itself is great. But what about the movie itself, the look? That's the most notable thing about it. The most notable thing about it is that it has this amazing Art Deco kind of design that goes through the architecture, the clothing, the weapons, everything has this design and different shapes, and there's circles and squares and triangles, and they're all arranged in such a way that they kind of offset each other. I know there's another name in art for that kind of style too, but I'm kind of losing the plot. But Art Deco is the one I'm most familiar with. I have forgotten what the production design was inspired by. That's why I should go back and watch that documentary. But it is amazing production design. It's the best that I personally have seen in a silent movie. I've seen a lot of silent movies. I haven't seen an enormous amount, as some of my friends have. It's easy to see a lot of them because most of them are very short. They're not all 5 hours long like this one or Judex, but the design is great. The costumes, everything is really. You can tell this movie had an enormous amount of craftsmanship and some money poured into it from someone. And I don't know. It's Lang's masterpiece to me. As much as I like Metropolis and respect it, it doesn't even really come close in my personal pantheon to this film. Neither does M, or any of his noirs, or Woman in the Moon, or Spiders. He was a prolific dude. So I think it's stunning and memorable just for the look of it alone. And the epic sweep of it is not too pretentious. It doesn't sag under its own weight. The music's appropriate. It's not overpowering. For this kind of visual style, I don't know, Wagner's music might be too much. This isn't like Endless Sturm und Drang or drama, German style. This is kind of a leisurely paced epic that has kind of peaks and valleys of wrongdoing and justice, and alternating, and mostly wrongdoing, and mostly done to Kriemhild. She's a long-suffering heroine. So, and her costumes are just next level amazing. Maybe I'll put a still for her for the thumbnail for this. Anyway, this has been a short one. I could do another one. I have several others that I've been watching recently, but to be honest, I'm very tired today, and I don't think I'm coming out at my best on this one compared to some of the other ones. My focus is a little off, but I wanted to get this in time for Christmas, and I wanted to recommend it for anyone who might be interested in fantasy film or silent film or Fritz Lang or the Mighty Thor, Norse gods, whatever, Lord of the Rings. I mean, this could appeal to a lot of different people. Different kind of geek crossovers could occur, with watching this. So, from watching this. So I'm going to go ahead and split, but I will do another more comprehensive and probably calmer, more focused, possibly better lit BLU review in coming days. and maybe, probably cover more than one at a time. I'm just doing one because of the factors I mentioned, but also because, okay, so it's Christmas and it's just like, this is the Christmas special, the NIBELUNGEN. And my Thanksgiving special was Nashville. So, in those cases, I can just stick to one movie. So you need to check this out. Thank you so much, and I'll be back soon